Right, yeah. Flip it over. And he was all over short. Loves it with you. It'll grow, you know?
Honestly, I thought you had it tucked, so I probably would have sat here and it would have taken me.
I just will see that, it's like, I really. Oh, no, he didn't even know.
Hi, Rick, how are you? Mr. Mayor?
Oh, I better move up.
Know where his extension cord went.
Fine, Mr. Mayor.
Because I don't know that you're going to reach. Ask him if he's got your cords. I don't think it's going to reach.
I need to, but we plugged it, there was that other little.
I think you were a little bit closer last time.
We did. Get yourself in the face. Just travel. What do you,
Where you get the big longer?
that's okay, guys. I have a little picture in case this goes long, I'm just saying. Ready to get down with you, get done today?
I did. I tell you what a fruitful meeting.
Good. First whistle call me back this afternoon. We're gonna look at his schedule for next week.
Good.
Good evening, everyone.
Well,
How are you, Mr. Carter?
I get there.
Doing fine, thank you. How are you?
Thank you. What's the problem? We got Ashley under the table.
How are you? She's good. I know, bless her heart. Better you crawling down there than me. I'm an old one. Please, I'm gonna need you to play that.
We're gonna call our meeting to order.
How are you?
I'd like to welcome you to our meeting this evening, and our call meeting, I would like to ask if you have cell phones to please turn them off at this time. We will stand and have pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Latham and prayer by Councilmember Reed.
If you would like to pray with us, would you please remain standing? Dear God of us all, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the mercy and the grace on this day and the favor. We thank you because it's a day that you made, and we shall all rejoice and be glad in it. We ask you to look upon the meeting that we're about to have and ask you to bless the agenda that has been set before us. Allow us to make sound decisions based on the citizens of Madison and not ourselves. Amen.
Amen. We need to add one item to our agenda tonight. We need to add executive session. If we can get a motion to add executive session to our agenda for tonight
So moved.
Mr. Mayor, what is the purpose of the
to
executive session?
discuss legality.
Second.
There any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Those who do not vote unanimously. Thank you so much. First item on our agenda, public hearing, comprehensive plan update. The public hearing is, anything you need to add, Bryce, before we go into our public hearing?
Regarding the comprehensive plan, sir,
The comprehensive plan.
and brief one. Just very briefly, there are two sort of house cleaning items that when adopted, you'll just need to be cognizant of the motion. The first is that we're going to update one other reference. It's a image, and Monica will be getting this, is a showing sort of the overall area. It's just sort of a reference shot, and it's just updated to show what the county's done. They've sent me the most recent stuff as of Friday afternoon, so that's just a minor edit. The other thing is on the maps, there's a small typo in legend. We have what I would like to call an appendix reference because I reused and modified some existing color codes. You'll notice there's at the end of the legend a orange box with a bunch of orange dots in it, and if that was a temporary experimental color I used and the label. When we turn it in, that won't be there because that's a vestigial organ, for lack of a better word.
Thank you, Bryce.
Thanks.
Sure. Well, we're now open for our public hearing. It's now open to anybody here to speak for it. Monica.
I'm going to give just a brief summary of what our activities were and what we tried to accomplish, and hopefully did so to a good degree of merit. So first of all, as y'all know, this was the interim, let's call it a health check on our comp plan. We are required and mandated by law. I know y'all know this, but I'm also reiterating this for the benefit of the public that may be watching. We're required to do comp planning by law every 10 years, and so therefore, at the 5-year mark, we typically do a community health checkup, for lack of better words. It used to be called the short-term work plan update, where you would just update the work plan, and then you'd also amend any major changes to your comp plan that needed to occur if you'd had like something large that was impactful. So at this time, we're doing a 5-year update. It's a little odd this time because it's not a 5-year update, it's kind of a 3-year update. But that being said, 3 years and with 2 years of COVID, not a lot of change. So primarily, the Madison Plans Committee that was called back together reviewed your materials. They were given the original comp plan handouts all over again. We went through those. They had several meetings, some before our advertisement, so we reheld all those all over again, made sure we incorporated those remarks, made sure if there was any changes or edits that we would do that. We went line by line through the short-term work program. And of course, there was some progress, but 3 years on a 20-year plan, or efficiently a 10-year work program, we wouldn't have expected a tremendous number of items to be accomplished. But there were a good many that actually started ahead of time that we weren't expecting to get started ahead of time. So we heavily updated the short-term work program. The state now calls that the community agenda. You'll see it appeared online and in your review in 2 sections. One is the report of accomplishments. Those are things that are done or things that are to be done by time it returns from the state back to you for adoption. So by the time it gets back to the state, it's probably going to be closer to July 1st. By the time that's adopted, that reports on the items that should have been done. And then you have the next 5-year work program laid out. So anything that wasn't done gets carried over. And anything that you've added to it. So just like Bryce said, there's some placeholders in any comp plan. I want to point out those placeholders to you so that we don't get any criticism that we've changed out a couple of pages when it comes back from the state. So the first is, you'll see that there were some intentionally blank sheets left in the portion that said community input. And that is because we will have minutes from Ashley for one meeting, and we have minutes from tonight's meeting. Those will be inserted into the plan before adoption. There's also a section in the short-term work program where you see red numbers. And I was surprised because this time everybody must know what that means because I didn't get any calls about what do the red numbers mean. The red numbers are new items, and it means that if the council finds the short-term work plan for the next 5 years acceptable, we'll go through those. They'll all be assigned a new number. And that's so we have a consecutive number and a report on every item that's done because in the 10-year mark, we're going to dispose of all those items. All right? So those are the red numbers in your short-term work program are placeholders. They'll be assigned real numbers provided that you would select all those items. If you were to discard one, it would change the numbering system. So Bryce also already updated you on my other edit that I was going to tell you about. So the character area map for the county, they just finished theirs, just gave notice of it on Friday or put it out on Friday, and that is an image that we cut and paste into our plan. So that image will need to change. Okay, but you did receive our version of that, and so did the public in a before and after. But the image itself, Bryce has to convert the whole image and suck it into the plan. So that would be a substitution of a map that you've already seen it in 2 pieces, but it'll be the holistic version gets sucked onto 1 page as an imagery piece. I think that's it. Just wanted to say that the Madison Plans Committee slogged through about 6 or 7 public meetings that were all 2.5 to 3 hours. They were long, they were thorough, and again, most of our concentration was in 2 areas. We concentrated primarily on the character area map. And I'm not going to go over that again this evening because y'all were very patient with me at the last meeting. But all those changes that were presented and discussed are the same changes that are proposed. And then the most heavy work other than that was also focused on the short-term work program because essentially that is the charge for us to do at the health checkup moment, which we have done. So the next part of the process is when I shut up, you will take public comment. We received several written comments today. I hope that y'all have had a chance to review those. Staff's happy to answer any questions, but we didn't see anything in there that we haven't heard before, so I'm not going to do a point-by-point rebuttal or an education game on any of those. I will be happy to answer your questions. That's not a brush off. Then you'll take public comment tonight. If you find that the plan is sufficient to your cause, then you will vote to adopt the resolution to transmit. It will go to the RC. When it goes to the RC will check through it for completeness. They will look for our public hearing ads. They will look for our, by saying this, I'll let you know, they're not reviewing it for content, they're reviewing it for a checklist of items. Have we done our short-term work program? Have we done a short-term work program update? Is there a character area map in it? Is the text still the same, or have we made significant changes? After they review it, they get 30 days to do that. It goes to the state, which is the Department of Community Affairs. They get 30 days to review it. They review it for content. The biggest thing that I think we might be vulnerable on is they like to see a broadband section in there. All of our broadband items were either done or disposed of, and the manager gave all those comments, and so they may say, hey, there's something else we're supposed to be doing on broadband, but in reality, we all know that our county has taken the lead on that, and we're very grateful for that, so there's not really a city-left item to do on that. That's the only area of the comp plan that I'm kind of worried we'll hear a comment from out of the state. Other than that, I feel sure that we'll pass the state review with a few minor comments. I'm sure that they're going to have something to say about workforce housing and that kind of thing, that we're not putting enough aggression in our housing plan. I think our locals might disagree. So we think we've hit a happy medium. So those are the elements. After it comes back from the state, it will again hit your desk. It will hit a regular docket. And at the regular docket, we will advertise, and then you will consider a resolution to adopt. At the time you consider the resolution to adopt, then it becomes in place, and it is the writing plan for the next 5 years until we do the whole enchilada all over again when we take big public input, right? Work sessions and public hearings and forums and all the big 10-year mark stuff. So that's the process. That's what's left. That's what we tried to accomplish this time. And I hope that everybody concentrated on the big concerns we heard out of residents. I'm happy to reiterate the big 4 or 5 that we heard. There is a lot of growing pains, concern about growth and how that looks like in our future. There is a predominant concern about traffic out of some citizens. Again, not sure the comp plan's the place to address that, but we kept hearing that over and over again. And there is a real tug and pull on housing. There's a tremendous housing need being discussed, but then there's a tremendous pushback on any form of new housing as well, and where it might go. So those are the tug and pulls we see that occurred during this comp plan discussion. And I just wanted, again, if you have not thanked the people who came and spent hours of their life, please do that as we move forward. They really deserve that pat on the back. And at that, I'll respond only to specific questions from y'all, and let me know how we can tweak it or make it better and what you want to do to proceed.
Thanks, Monica. I'd like to thank those community leaders too who came and worked on this comp plan, spent many hours working on this, and thanks for a job well done. Okay, our public hearing is now open. Anyone here to speak for it? Anyone here to speak against it? we're coming back to the council.
Oh, I know, I was just wondering if there was,
I don't think anybody's up. Is anybody on? Ken?
There's that one person.
Who is it?
Well, we made it that you can only interact through the go-to meeting, so. The person online
Hard to call.
has no comment, then you're good.
No comment for, did you comment against?
Any comments? Who is it, Ken, you know?
Well, there's no name on it. I think it's.
Just H?
I think it's Elizabeth Bell.
Elizabeth Bell, any comments? If you're listening, Ms. Bell?
well, I think she also submitted
Yeah,
Written
we read that.
comments
Yeah.
today.
If there are no comments, anybody to speak against?
This is Elizabeth Bell. Thank you for calling on me, but my comments as to the plan are contained in my correspondence today.
Okay, thank you
What did
for
she
that.
say?
She said her correspondence were in her letter that will.
Okay.
Her comments were
We all
contained in
received
the.
Right. Well, thank you so much. We received those comments. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you for recognizing me.
Yes, ma'am. There are no more comments. It's back to our council for discussion and approval.
Mr. Mayor, on the subject of the letters that we received, we've had a lot of people submit letters. Are they go in as part of the public comment in the document that we're producing, or how does that work?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I probably skipped that. Thank you for reminding me. There's also a page that says intentionally left blank, because we assumed we would receive similar written comments that we have at the last two. And so if you'll notice in the current package that's online, we fed those comments in, and the ones we received today will go in as a single PDF and be fed in as well. The state doesn't require us to do that. We could do a summary and say, here are the concerns we had, but we've just found it's easier just to include people's letters. We don't get, in the past, we haven't received enough to make it that we need to summarize. We can include their comments directly.
Okay, and so all the letters that have gone to Ashley that she's forwarded to us are in this grouping that you're talking about adding?
Yes, sir. Ashley receives a comment back from me when she receives them that says received and filed. And that means that I've put them in the comp plan folder. At the conclusion of this public hearing, I will book them as a PDF and they get fed into that blank page.
And if you could kind of just, Friday was, everything in what we've done on this update was in the website Friday, is that right?
Everything that we had done on the update, I think was posted on Wednesday, but I'm pretty sure we could go back and look at the computer log. When did packets have to be out, Ashley? Wednesday? Everything was
went out on
posted the same day I sent it to your
Tuesday or
city clerk
Wednesday.
for distribution to you.
What are you saying, Ashley?
The agenda went out on Monday, and I can't remember if the packet went out on Tuesday or Wednesday to you all.
Okay.
All my materials were submitted and posted, and when I called Ashley and said, your email is in the mail to you for links for the council, everything was posted.
Okay. If for whatever reason, if the council decided it might be better, I'm just throwing this out there, to wait until perhaps a later council meeting to actually vote to transmit, does that change deadlines in terms of the regional commission, or does it put us behind the eight ball and getting it all done on time?
I think
I don't have a great deal of reluctance on that. I went ahead and assumed that the slowdown plan was still the slowdown plan, and we went ahead and advertised for June 3rd for your work session to give people additional time for comments. Reviewing today's comments versus the comments we've received previously, they're not substantially different, so we don't expect that you would receive something substantially different by June 3rd. However, if you wanted to kind of kick the can to June 3rd, there would be no negativity out of the planning department. I will say that Morgan County has held their final hearing. They're moving forward May 19th. We're trying to stay pretty in concert, lockstep with them, so that both City of Madison and Morgan County's government.
Is that June 19th?
No, theirs was May 19th.
Oh, they've already done it.
Unless they pushed it back another time, Bryce?
It's going before their mayor and for the board of commissioners at the meeting. That was the last public hearing they had in addition.
Okay. So we're pretty in sync with the county right now, and Our preference is for Madison not to lose its QLG status, but if we lose it for 30 days, I don't think that there's anything big grant-wise that would be awarded in 30 days that we'd miss out on.
I mean, the only reason I'm asking, the letters we received, we got those
Late.
quite a while ago. Well, not necessarily late. I think
Well-
we've had them long enough to consider them. I certainly have.
Today? Well, there
Well,
was
but
today.
I received one that you're referencing earlier that
Okay,
had
sure.
the same points. Maybe that
Okay.
didn't make it around, but at any rate,
I think it would be more helpful if you thought we were going to receive anything you thought staff
well,
needed
that,
to
I don't know.
address.
I don't know. I personally feel like the information that I need, I've received. And I'm not anticipating really any new stuff. However, I don't want to preclude the public's ability to go on the website this weekend, see things that might jump out. But I could just be a voice of one. I'm just putting it out there. I just want to get the information before I decide.
Again, I don't have any strong recommendations one way or the other. We're pretty in lockstep with the county now, an extra 2 weeks. Yeah. Is that the appropriate answer? Am I supposed to go meh? Okay, meh.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Darrell. Any more comments?
Yeah, well, let me ask one question,
Sure.
just to clarify. So you would take what has been received in the last few days in terms of public comment, written comment
Mhm.
that we got, and you would compile those into a PDF, but I guess what I'm understanding you to say, you wouldn't break those down. Those would just they'd still be there, those self-contained documents that would go all together.
Right, so the way you convey public comments to the state is you can say, we had public hearings, and you include the sign-in sheet. That's all they care about. They don't care what the comments were. They don't care what the impact of them were. All I have to scan is the ad and the sign-in sheet. However, since we have more than a few people who have very strong comments,
Sure.
who would feel disenfranchised if their materials were not incorporated in some way, we have sometimes summarized those comments. This time, we only have 3 people really that are consistently commenting. And so it's just easier to include their letters.
Right.
It's not worth the staff time.
That's fine, no. And in fact, I think that that's worthwhile. I mean, that's fine for me, I was just clarifying how you did. In
We'll
terms-
include them in the appendix, just like we would the ads and
Right.
the hearing dates.
And then in terms of, when you referenced earlier about the minutes inserted in the work plan, that's similar to the written public comment as well. I mean, that has the sort of same function.
It has the same
In terms of
function.
holding a record of,
Right, if you were to review other people's comp plans, sometimes they have the dates of the public hearing, the sign-in sheets to prove that, some people came or spoke, and minutes, and that's it. We're putting in all 4. It
right,
don't-
yeah, no, I think that's great, I think. And then after this goes to the state, would it still also be sort of the comp plan is always a working document for us, but then that information that goes into under those pages would also be what he's referenced
Sure.
from the website as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They become an incorporated appendix.
Perfect. Yeah. Just wanted to make sure. That's great. Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Are there any more comments for Monica?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I think that the planning group has done a good job going through this. I think that we were challenged that this was a 30,000 square foot look, and kind of seeing how we blend in with the county, and a lot of these stuff. There's a lot of good suggestions here, and I do thank them for those suggestions, and I think some of those suggestions are something that we might just want to have a committee get together, because some of these could possibly be worked out and don't need to be in a comprehensive plan. I mean, I see some of these issues with the traffic that could possibly be, working with DOT and the synchronizations of the signs on Main Street. I mean, those are valid points, very valid. Some of the issues with turning left off of East Washington to try to make that turn, when you see the traffic coming up 83, which if I looked at a traffic count, if it's not increased, I would think it has. But I have the same problem that our citizens have, trying to make a left-hand turn when you got 22 cars coming up 83 making a right-hand turn. So some of those things, I think we need to have a committee. We don't need to do a comprehensive plan, but we need to take a real close, short-term look at how to handle those situations. And that'll solve a lot of these little problems. And I know the public doesn't know, but we're definitely working on trying to find a parking plan and those are things that are on our agenda that we haven't talked about, but we want to come back to. So again, great points from the public. I think it's more for us to start looking at now with a committee just to see what we can do.
Thanks, I appreciate those comments.
Mr. Mayor, may I add to that,
Sure.
please? So just in general, I think that we received a lot of comments about transportation and traffic. And as someone who owns a house on Main Street and understands the differences between getting out of your driveway at 8 o'clock versus 9 o'clock, I think those are all things, some of the points do have merit for discussion. I think what you experience as people public comment is they don't necessarily understand or where they can plug into the process in the most effective manner. So when we do green print or green space planning, the comp plan is this 30,000 feet document. There is a green print that drills down and talks about parks and green space and trails, and it has an exhaustive version of that. The same is with the transportation plan. I'm probably one of the few people in this room that's read the transportation plan. We have two. There's the transportation plan that is a 4-county area that we ask DOT to do, and it takes a certain amount of time, and it's a 4-county jurisdiction, and they set out their agenda and their items and what they're going to try to accomplish. And then at the local level, we have a major thoroughfare plan, which is also in an 1.5-inch binder. Those are ways you dive down into those specific issues you're talking about and address on a minute level. So this is not a minutia planning document. It's an umbrella planning document. Very similar to urban redevelopment. We might talk about all the things we want to see in an urban redevelopment area that change, but you don't see the minutia appear in the comp plan. The minutia appears in the urban redevelopment plan. Same thing with our housing. You will probably see a housing plan come out in the next 2 years because we've reached that point where we need to have some strong discussions because we've got we need, but we don't want. And so we're going to have really good public hearings and discussion on that to avoid future conflicts. And so there'll be a pretty thick document where you actually study it and drill down for detail. So I think when people participate, Councilmember Lathan, I think that it becomes kind of a kitchen sink approach to comments, and they're not always aware that there's a more intensive document that often follows. And so for this one, I'm going to reemphasize, because we had more than a few comments about traffic. I'm going to reemphasize on your work program, update of the transportation plan is on your work program, and that will go as fast or as not fast as you fund it and you want it to occur. So.
And that's totally fair, and it's great to kind of clarify that once again, that it's sort of that big picture view. But I also feel like with Councilmember Latham, I really do like this does keep coming up, and if the comp plan is not the place that we get to address it and work to solve those issues, then we do need to concentrate on where we can.
Right, and we have.
So thank you, Monica, for that.
And we have had GDOT here several times to talk about the traffic flow here in Madison.
Right.
Yep. And we would continue to keep them in the conversation.
And
Sure.
the major thoroughfare plan doesn't set out the goals of DOT. The multimodal transportation plan does. Because, if we keep complaining about how the load of traffic is on Main Street, our concern, their goal is to widen Main Street to a 3-lane. They respond to traffic dilemmas by building bigger facilities. That's typically how that happens. The major thoroughfare plan approaches transportation improvements from a local perspective. How do we do traffic calming? How do we enforce a reconnected grid so that we have dispersal of traffic? You've seen David implement 3 or 4 items from our local thoroughfare plan, like the traffic calming signs that David implemented. So I think that you have 2 transportation documents. If you want to update those sooner rather than later, that's great. Just remember that those will never be done in-house, because I don't even purport to be a transportation planner on TV. So those people are more likely to be engineers, because their job is to move traffic more efficiently and faster through the community, not necessarily to slow it down or to reroute it. They'll approach it from a different perspective. And then we have to ask for and supplement that in our local traffic transportation plan. If you'll remember in our the thoroughfare plan, we actually did truck counts and paid for truck counts because there was such concern about truck traffic on Main Street. DOT didn't put that in their plan. We paid for it extra to go in ours. So we certainly will work on that over the next year or two if that's a high priority for the council.
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor,
Mayor, if I could add just one thing. The process and the meetings I found them really instructive, and the discussions, even though they were from 30,000 feet, I thought they were really beneficial for me, and I hope for the public too, to learn, to really hear different people's opinions about growth, and it's obviously very connected traffic issues. But I thought the whole process, the meetings I went to, I learned a lot, and I think the discussions were really good. And maybe some of the fine details of, I guess, the details of our obligations to do the process a certain way, maybe we were a little bit shy of optimal at various times. But the process itself, I thought, was very instructive, very insightful, and I think beneficial, especially when you consider this is really the midway point of a 10-year plan. This is not the redo of an entire 10-year plan. And it is a 30,000-foot view, as Ed said. So I was overall thought the process, the discussions were really, really very helpful.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to say one last thing. Main Street's not the only street in this town that's got the problem. If you happen to live on East Avenue and you live in Cedar Lakes, Valley Farm, Miranda Park, any of the houses on East, you ever try to get out of there when the schools are in session, and then when they release their students, and now all the schools are over there, it's not some over, so we have that issue everywhere else. It's just not all associated with Main Street in the historic section. So we have that's a problem.
That is true. And the great thing about having a transportation planner come from outside of town to help us is, one, it takes heat off local staff, which we like. But 2, it's interesting to hear their outside perspectives, because when they look at a facility that is at an A level, and even if we put 3 multifamilies on the road and they say it's still going to operate at a B level, and our local community is screaming that that's change, they're like, the facility's still designed to carry it. You haven't put the facility in crisis yet.
Yeah.
Change is often hard, but non-functional streets or impaired streets are a matter of perspective. And so having out-of-town experts who can focus on not the emotional issues, but focus on the quantitative facility issues is often helpful to put it in perspective for elected officials who are receiving political pressure. So staff's very supportive of an outside planner coming to do transportation.
Thanks, Monica. Appreciate
Yes, sir.
that.
Thank you.
Any qualitative or substantive questions or about anything in the document that gave you concern or pause? The 2 major things I want to draw your attention to that we did not address that were really big bones of, not bones of contention, they were items that were brought up. We did not address a moratorium. We heard it multiple times. We asked for individual feedback from council members, and I got no feedback that was a direction we should pursue. I want to be clear about that, because if that is something that needs to be amended to the plan. I'm not trying to stir the pot. I am actually just trying to, full disclosure. And then the other thing is the map were the biggest changes. You saw an addition to residential land because it's tied up with 3 or 4 property owners. You saw no jump to the bypass. And you saw some conversion out of the 113 interchange to give us some more residential property. You saw some add to do commercial land, and you saw a little bit of swapping around of industrial. Those were the big changes. So, and I received no feedback on the map that it needed to be different. And I just want to give you one last cattle call and say, is there anything that you wanted us to address that we didn't get addressed for you this time around? And then last, I would thank Eric for his comments because he's the only commissioner at the table other than Fred, who served on both committees at the 10-year full enchilada part, and then listening in and paying attention to them as they did the checkup. So thank you for doing that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to put a motion on the table.
We're ready, if you are, we're ready. Thanks, Monica. We're ready.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the resolution to transmit the comprehensive plan update be signed and delivered.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none, to vote unanimously. Thank you so much. Thanks to the comprehensive group again for working so hard and so diligently, finally. Thank you. There's nothing else to come before this meeting. This meeting is adjourned, and I would like to, we're going to get a motion to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session.
Second.
For legality. Are there any more discussion?
Second to Eric and to Betsy.
All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none. Vote unanimously. Okay, so we will go into executive session to discuss legality.
Thank you. Thank you guys very